2 days later, at the foot of Mount Fuji in Japan, thousands of people from all over the world gathered for the annual Symphony of Peace Prayers ceremony. An international group of religious and spiritual leaders embodied the spirit of oneness through their prayers for peace, setting the stage for the official inauguration of the Fuji Declaration. Thousands of participants joined in prayers for peace from several of the world's major religious traditions, sending the message that within our diversity is a common wish for peace. They then offered prayers for peace in all the countries and religions of the world. Whether through discussion or prayerful celebration, the Fuji Declaration continues to create opportunities for each individual to experience their sacred spirit in a world of oneness.
All the other regions of the world.
May peace be in all the other regions of the world.
May peace prevail on earth.
What a way to start the day with a prayer for humanity that is full of divine sparks. Thank you so much to composer Andre Ripa and cellist Brianna Tam for their magnificent musical piece. And hello world! This is day 3 of the Source of Wonder event. My name is Nora Cesar and we've met last weekend. So how are you doing? I hope you're feeling even a small stirring of wonder and hope about a powerful source, your loving resource that awaits you. And here are some further divine sparks to help remind us. First, initiator of the Fuji Declaration and president of the Goei Peace Foundation, Mr. Hiroo Saionji, followed by a world-renowned scientist and lover of laughter, Dr. Bruce Lipton.
Hello everyone, my name is Hiroo Saionji, president of the Goei Peace Foundation. I'm delighted to send my message to this important online event, Source of Wonder. Today, we are facing urgent global problems in various fields such as poverty, hunger, illness, resources and environment, education, among others. There is a strong sense of danger that human beings and global ecosystem will become irreversible if human beings continue to live as they are. The global epidemic of new coronavirus infections happened under such circumstances and has had a great impact on social and economic activities. We already see some changes are being made in our lifestyle and working condition as a result. In a sense, I feel that the pandemic is pushing us for social change, consciousness change, and behavior change toward sustainable society. We must take this unprecedented opportunity to change the consciousness of humankind, as stated in the Fuji Declaration. The Fuji Declaration is a global alliance initiated by Dr. Ervin Laszlo, the founder and president of the Club of Budapest, my wife and myself, Masami and Hiroo Saionji, chairperson and president of the Goei Peace Foundation. And inaugurated in 2015, together with 60 international partner organizations and more than 200 eminent founding signatories, including Nobel Prize laureates and the former heads of states. So this year is the 5th anniversary of the Fuji Declaration. In the Fuji Declaration, we emphasize 2 important consciousness and values that everyone must be reminded in order to create harmonious and sustainable world. The first consciousness is that every individual is good by nature, and each one of us has sacred spirit, which we call divine spark in the declaration. And the second consciousness is oneness. That is to say, humanity is all connected each other, and with also nature and the universe. So the purpose of the Fuji Declaration is to awake the divine spark and oneness consciousness in the spirit of humanity. This time, on the occasion of the publication of Dr. Laszlo's new book, Reconnecting to the Source, we decided to host together this online joint event to promote the important values of the Fuji Declaration and the new book, Reconnecting to the Source. I would say reviving divine spark implies bringing out our essence. On the other hand, reconnecting to the source implies going deeper inside. So I believe that they are both identical meaning, but the only approach is from different direction. We invite eminent guests with various backgrounds to contribute to this online event with their speech, meditation, poem, music, and so forth. Therefore, I hope you enjoy yourself and you can feel sacred essence of humanity, such as love, sympathy, kindness, sincerity, and forgiveness from the program. Thank you very much, and may peace prevail on earth.
Hi, dear friends, cultural creatives, and seekers everywhere. I'm Bruce Lipton, cell biologist and author of the best-selling books, The Biology of Belief, Spontaneous Evolution, and The Honeymoon Effect. Well, I have a very interesting story of a life experience that started when I was 7 years old and in second grade. The first time I looked into a microscope and saw cells, amoeba, paramecia, algae, and I saw these cells through the microscope as this little kid, and I saw a world that was existing that I couldn't even see. And in that world, these cells were like little people moving around, and it got my interest up. And the relevance about that is that 20 years later, I graduate from the University of Virginia's graduate school with a PhD in cell biology and electron microscopy, studying cells. Well, it all paid off. In 1967, I had an opportunity to work on stem cells, when in the world there were only just a handful of people that even knew what stem cells were. And the significance of this research, it revealed something entirely different than what I was programmed to understand as a biologist. In my education, I was programmed to see that life was controlled by genes and that life was just a temporary existence. You're born, you live, you die. And I lived with that and actually taught that kind of biology to students, including medical students. However, in 1967, my research on stem cells revealed a completely different story. It revealed that the environment was actually controlling the genes, that the genes were not turning on and off and regulating life as I had been telling students. But the fact was, it was the environment that was selecting genetic activity. And I go, well, what was relevant? I say, what I was teaching students was essentially victimization, meaning as far as we know, they didn't pick the genes they came with. They couldn't change the genes if they didn't like their characteristics, and we tell the students that genes turn on and off and express their activity without us being involved. Well, if you understand that story, it's basically a story of victimization. Genes control me, and I don't control my genes. But in the experiments in 1967 on stem cells, a whole new insight to biology was given to me by the action of the cells in my culture dish. And what it revealed very simply is that genes are controlled by information from the environment. And in regard to humans, not only that, but by the perceptions we have of that environment. And you say, so what? And I go, well, here's what's so important. If genes control my life, then I'm a victim. But if perceptions and environment control my life, then I have the option to becoming a master, because I'm the one that controls my perceptions and my environment, and therefore I am the master of my genetic activity. Well, following that interesting sideline, which led to a whole new field called epigenetics, is the fact that cells and tissue culture are controlled by the signals from the environment through what is called the cell membrane, the skin of the cell. And when I was studying the nature of how that cell membrane translated environmental signals into genetic activity, I recognized one very important fact, that obviously no two people are biologically the same. I say, well, what do you mean? I say, if I take my cells or organs out of my body and put it into your body, your immune system will reject that transplant, because your immune system can recognize that my cells were not your cells. I say, well, then there's identity to cells. I said, yes, you cannot transfer your cells or receive cells from somebody else because the immune system can read whose cells they are. And I go, well, where in the cell is that personal identity to be found? Well, my research again led to the cell membrane, and on the surface of that cell membrane, there are receptors. And receptors are devices that read environmental signals. For example, in your human body, the parallel understanding is you have receptors to read the environment, and where are they? Well, they're located as developments of the skin. Eyes, ears, nose, taste, touch, pain, temperature. I say, what's relevant? I say that these signals that the cells receive are coming through receptors that are analogous to our own receptor organs. And I say, yeah, but what's unique? And I said, no two people have the same set of what scientists refer to as self-receptors, receivers of self. I go, well, what does that mean? I say that each of us has an identity based on a set of proteins built into the cell membrane, like antennas, like tiny television antennas sticking from the surface of your cell. But no two people have the same set of these antennas. And I started to realize a very important thing. Yes, self-receptors receive a signal called self. But what was most important in this insight is that the self-receptors are on the outside of the cell. I say, so what's relevant? I said, well, whatever the signals that identify self are not coming from inside the cell, they're coming from the environment. When I understood that the signals of self were coming from the outside and entering into my body, I started to also recognize the important role of quantum physics, which is based on what? That the idea that we have a physical reality and an energetic reality, two realms of the universe, is an error. In quantum physics, there's only one realm to the universe. Everything is energy. And all of a sudden, I started to put this together, and I realized something that profoundly changed my life, that our identities are not in the cells. Our identities are sent to the cells as an energy broadcast. And I go, well, why is that relevant? And the answer is best understood in an analogy. And that analogy is this. Consider my body as a television set, and that the antennas on my cells are downloading a program called the Bruce Show. And I go, why is that relevant? And I say, well, look, go back to an understanding you're watching TV, you're watching a show, and the TV breaks, and I say, the TV is dead. But the most important question now is, did the broadcast die with the TV? And the answer is no. The broadcast is always there. And then it hit me, oh my goodness, our identity is not within this body. Our identity is an energy field received by this body. If the bodies come and go, that doesn't alter the existence of the energy field. Our identity is immortal. It's an energy frequency out in the field. It's always here. And I say, what's the relevance? Well, if this television called Bruce dies, the broadcast is still here. And if an embryo in the future comes up with the same set of those antennas called self-receptors, I'm back online again with a new TV set. Does it make a difference if this TV set is male or female? No, it's a TV set. Does it make a difference if this TV set is black, brown, yellow, red, white? No, that's the TV set. To distinguish us from who we are, we're not the TV, we're the broadcast. And all of a sudden the concept of our immortality became so real to me. And the understanding of ancient people's insights into what is called spirituality also came to an understanding for a very simple reason. In quantum physics, we talk about the energy in the field, that the energy is like an aquarium of information surrounding us. We're enveloped in an information aquarium. The relevance is that ancient concepts of spirituality are now supported by the modern concept of quantum physics. I go, well, what do you mean? I say, well, what do quantum physicists call the energy in which we're immersed? They call it the field. I said, what's the definition of the field? Invisible, moving forces that influence the physical world. I go, wow. When I understood that, all of a sudden I said, oh my goodness. The ancient term spirituality represented what? Invisible moving forces that influence the physical world. And then all of a sudden it hit me. I said, oh my God, ancient spirituality wisdom is the same as the wisdom offered by quantum physics today. That we are creators of the world in which we live. I was so excited to give people an opportunity to recognize they're not victims of their genetics, but they're absolutely creators of their life experiences, including creating their genetic activity. And I wanted to tell people, and I started to give them that story, but unfortunately at the very beginning, that story was given in terms of scientific vocabulary. And I go, why is that relevant? Because the vocabulary that we use in science is somewhat akin to the Latin used by the church, meaning if you're not part of that leadership, if you're not the priest or you're not the scientist, the vocabulary of science is obscure. No one really understands it. And I started to realize it was very difficult to translate my new insights about quantum physics, spirituality, immortality using conventional science. And that's when I started to realize, how could I best get this information to the public? And then all of a sudden I took up a new occupation. I became an actor. But what was the most exciting thing is I took that science and made entertainment out of it, a field of presentation called edutainment. I would dress up in costumes and then play around with the jokey stories to do what? To provide insights to people about the nature of this new science of spirituality. The reason why is when we really own that we're spiritual entities, then we start to really recognize we're not victims of the world around us, but we are truly the creators of the world around us. And so now, my life has been kind of overjoyed by playing an actor in many different roles. To demonstrate the consequence of edutainment, I hope you enjoy the following montage of excerpts from videos that I provided to the public. Hi, I'm a scientist. Hi, I'm a spiritualist. You know, we both act as truth providers for human civilization, except for the fact we are very different. I believe in and worship God. I use a scientific method to understand nature through experimentation and observation. What can science show you that God can't? Oh, excuse me. You caught me in the middle of my creation moment. Yes, I was using the Force to create an image of a world that I would love to live in. You know, we can all do that because we all have the Force. There's only one problem in today's world, though, and that is we've polarized the Force. Holy yikes, the people of Earth are facing a mass extinction. They don't even know what to do to save themselves and their beautiful planet. I must go down there. I must go down there and help those people. Scotty, beam me down to the planet. Greetings, I am Dr. Beyond, and I welcome you to the multiverse. Oh, there's a nocebo alert on my Apple hologram machine. Oh, I must go help Alex. Dr. Nocebo is giving him a lot of negative thinking. And what Alex doesn't recognize is that negative thinking is equally powerful in changing our lives as positive thinking. And now, let's go live to the cockpit and speak with astronaut Dr. Bruce Lipton. Bruce. Bruce, can you hear me? I think we're experiencing Mr. Bananas, thank you very much for this opportunity to talk to the world about this special mission to save the planet. We have new information on... Hi, I'm Dr. Beyond. Welcome for this opportunity to look into the future. Gazing into this crystal ball, we can understand things that we haven't really come to understand in our world yet. Not sure what it is. Bill drives into the local gas station where he sees the mechanic. There's a gas station! I'm going there! Whew, wow, I'm lucky I made it into the garage before anything went wrong with the car. Well, Bill, what seems to be the problem here? Well, hi, Mr. John. I'm having a problem with the service engine light that's flashing. I don't know what to do about it. Well, that'll be easy fix. You go wait in the waiting room and I'll come and get you when the job is done. Thank you, Mr. John. My dad will be real happy to have the car fixed. Mr. Speaker, may I address the Congress?
Yes, Mr. Lipton from Virginia. You may have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Hancock. Distinguished members of this Congress, in the history of civilization, we are creating something brand new, something new that the world has never seen before. And what did I personally learn from my own educational experience? And that is simply this. Yes, heaven on earth is a reality. And to experience that every day when I wake up, the first thing I do is recognize how lucky I am to be on this planet. And then I start to recognize how love is the glue that holds everything together. So first thing I do when I wake up is say, wow, I'm back. And then the next thing I do is tell my loving partner, Margaret, how much I love her. The significance of that? That is the fuel that carries me through the rest of my day. And love is the power of peace, harmony, and health.
Well, there's something remarkable that happened to the global family this year. And who knows why it happened or what started it, how it happened. None of that really matters. What matters is that there was an experience, a collective, unifying moment on earth that vivified what the wisdom of the ancients have talked about forever, that we are one. And I think there's a misunderstanding about what it means to be one. But when this global family, this very dysfunctional global family, was finally brought to its knees thanks to COVID-19, it was probably the first time in history, or in modern history, where we got to experience what that really means to be so fragile, so dependent on one another, yet so in need of being independent of one another. And this paradox of what that means, to be needing each other and yet needing to be independent and self-sufficient. And it's caused so much emotional disruption, not just emotional, but the very paradigms and infrastructures that have held our very fragile family together for so much time. And what's important to understand is that I feel we've been caught in a straitjacket of either or. Either we're independent of each other or we need each other. What COVID showed us was it's not either or, it's much more. It's and one doesn't have to replace the other. What's also very important, what COVID has shown us, is the need to not only respond to what's going on out there, but to reconnect to what's going on in here. In here, there is the most precious personal relationship we will ever have in our entire time as a human being. And that relationship is to Source. And Source is something that belongs to everyone. It is intangible, it is a sense, it is something to be cultivated and something to be expanded upon, because it has more information to share with us and to reassure us about than anything that we will ever experience and see out here or from here. I invite all of us to ignite this little divine spark and kindle it and cultivate a beautiful working relationship with it. Let it guide us, let it comfort us, and let it be a lily pad to our own expansion of what it means to be a global family.
Thank you for the lovely seaside greetings from our dear friend Alison Goldwyn. And now, through royalty, Source speaks. Softly, humbly, poetically. With Prince Alfred of Liechtenstein and Princess Irene of the Netherlands, a very warm and special welcome to them.
The Fuji Declaration is a great concept and a wonderful reminder to reflect about ourselves and the world within we are living today. However, my friends, we are beyond papers. We are beyond declarations and manifestos. Now we have to act. We have to become awake. Because what's going on today in the world is something which has never happened before. All the events and all the circumstances and the different activities which we can see and which we have gone through also during the last months point us in a direction where we understand, and we have to understand that everything now is depending on our awareness and awakening. Humanity is at a crossroads. Either we awake individually and collectively, or we will go into a kind of a worldwide dictatorship. I think it's very timely that we look at the Fuji Declaration again, and as I said in the beginning, that we get reminded that we have to awaken, that we want to awake the light within ourselves. And this is an individual procedure, but we can support each other, inspire each other, and help each other on the way of awakening. I thank all the people who are now again pushing the memory in regard to the Fuji Declaration and similar declarations, and because we really are at the crossroads, as I said, I hope it will be not too late for the great awakening. Thank you very much, my friends. All the best to you.
Water flows abundantly down from the high glaciers, cleansing the earth, cleansing our senses and souls. I am because nature is, and because she is, I am. Princess Irene of the Netherlands.
The flute of interior time is played, whether we hear it or not. What we mean by love is its sound coming in. When love hits the farthest edge of excess, it reaches a wisdom. And all the fragrance of that wisdom. It penetrates our thick bodies, it goes through walls, its note has a network as if 1,000,000 suns were arranged inside it. This tune has truth in it. Where else have you heard a sound like yours? So this anthem, the How I Love You anthem, has been sung all over the world, and I would love to share that with you now. It's the simplest message we can all share with each other and give to each other all the time. So I'd like you to practice this on a regular basis, at least 5 minutes a day, increasing to 5 hours, 24 hours, okay? And all you have to do is go, how I our children. All our mothers love you. All our fathers, all our friends love. All strangers, the ones we don't know yet. This planet love you. All the galaxies, the cosmos.
Oh, how we love you, dear Chloe, and you, dear viewers. If you don't speak Japanese, don't worry. The Soul of Women has subtitles in the language of the heart. The Soul of Women is a platform organized by Japanese women leaders to create a more harmonious and balanced world that is based on trust and respect for all life. Here are Tomoyo Nonaka, Suzue Miuchi, and Izumi Masukawa, followed by the son of a very famous movie star who makes his love of helping humanity into a thing of art, Richard Olivier.
Gochild. Thank you for having us today. We are SOW! Well, my name is Tomoyo Nonaka.
My name is Suzue Miuchi.
My name is Izumi Masukawa.
Well, SOW is, you might remember this logo, Soul of Women. And what is Soul of Women stands for, you can see this, Society of Unconditional Love, of course, and Society of Universal Love. Oh, sounds perfect. This is our pride of naming this, and Soul of Women. You can see that M is the capital M. It means not only women, but also men together with. So, Soul of Women. Then, today, we are suffering COVID-19, but this is a very, very great opportunity to shift. We believe that. ですよね。
そうですね。
そうですね。
COVID-19 によって私たちは本当に尊い機会を得られたと思います。いつも忙しくて外に向かっている意識がですね、本当に内側に内なる意識に向かって個々の調律の時間を持てたんじゃないかと思います。
本当に生きているのではなくて生かされている。Stay home という中で Stay look into ourselves。貴重な時間でしたよね。
そうですね、本当に、まあなんか自分を見つめ直すいい機会になりました。閉じこもりながらなんで生きてるのかなって思うこともすごく多くて。
はい。でもMiuchiさんは、もう世界にもうファンがいっぱいいます。ガラスの仮面はもちろんですけど、これは日本の中でも何部ぐらいですか？
いや、日本の中では5000万部以上だし、
5000万部。
舞台も何度もしていただいたり、テレビドラマになったり、はい、
世界中にファンがいる方ですが、でもMiuchiさんはこの作品、漫画家として一番伝えたいことはずっと変わらないものがあるとおっしゃってて、
そうですね、
自身の体験の中にもある。
はい、はい、ありますね。まあ私たち、まあ、漫画を通して感じ取っていただければ一番いいんですけれど、やっぱり肉体の中に宿る自分自身の命っていうものを4歳の時に経験したことがあって、 肉体から抜け出して私の魂が他の世界を見てきたっていう
幽体離脱という。
そうです、はい、ただそれを、両親に話したらえらい怒られてしまって、はい、そういうことは言うもんじゃないっていうことでね、はい、ただ本当にそこをきっかけにすごく見えない世界とか肉体の中に宿る自分自身とかというものをすごくこう覚醒していったっていうか、できっと私だけじゃなくて、他にもたくさんいらっしゃると思って途中から、漫画家として何ができるかって言った時にも漫画でやるしかないなと思って。それでアマテラスっていうね、漫画を描かせていただいてるんです。
素晴らしい、深くて広い
不安です。でも寝ずに読める素晴らしい。
でも寝不足になるのでちょっと頭が痛いんですけど。でもみゆきさんは漫画家としてだけでなくて日本中歩いてらして、その時に私が心に残るのは裸足で歩くと。地面というのは地面ではなくて私たちに語りかけてくれるメッセージがいっぱいあるんだ。それが渦巻きのようにエネルギーがあると。
そうですね、やっぱりそれは、随分前からそうなんですけど、聖地と言われてる山のてっぺんに登った時にその地面の下からですね、すごいその螺旋状に渦を巻いて見えないエネルギーがブワーッとあちこちから立ち上っている経験をしたことがあって、自分自身もそこにいるだけですごく居心地が良くて、これは何だろうと思って、そこの山は、動物植物、昆虫に至るまですごく種類が多くて生命が非常に豊かな山なんですね。おそらくそれはこの大地の下から出てくる、その渦のエネルギーによって生かされて育てられているのかなって感じをしたのが最初なんですね。
目にも見えるし体全体が受け取るエネルギーの渦。
そうなんです。
でも増川さん、ごめんなさい、増川さんは宇宙の星々、銀河系の私たち写真を思い浮かべても渦ですよね。でつむじも渦だし、生きている命が
血管もリンパも
渦巻いてますね。遺伝子もそうですもんね。
水の流れも体の中で渦巻いている。
水と電磁波とそれからエネルギーとサウンドとで、その星々ちょっと見上げた、例えば水星金星、違うエネルギーを私たち地球の人々に与えてくれているという、その対価でもいるんだけれども、それが今覚醒しなければいけない。
そうですね、もうずっとそういう周波数を追いかけて、最初は水の研究所からそして電磁波の研究に行って、最後に行き着いたのはなぜ音かというと、民族を超えて、それから知識も超えて、言葉の壁も超えるのが音なんですよね。
もうこうやって手を叩くだけでもこれバイブレーション
で、やはりその音が私たちの意識の覚醒に非常に素晴らしい効果を与えて、
ダイレクトに響きます。
ダイレクト、要するに知識とか言葉に関係なくダイレクトに響くので、これこそ覚醒にいいと思いましてスクールを作って、もう
30年以上
スクールは13年ですけど、電磁波の研究は全部で47年。
じゃあ赤ん坊の頃からやってらっしゃったでもこういうソウル・オブ・ウォーマンで男も女もなく一緒にということでしたけど、みゆきさんはね、
そうですね、
そんな男とか女とか言ってる場合じゃない
私たちの中には絶対そうなんですよ。男性性もあれば女性性もあって、それは今までそういうものを関係なく作られていた女性像とか男性像とかって、そうじゃなくて、
終わりですよね。
そうじゃなくて、私たちはそれを合体させた人間力として、生きていきたいなと。それがどうやってみんな強調しながらね、やっていけるのかなっていう、
命にフォーカスした考え方、経済だとか、エゴだとか、
男の人が、とりわけね、第二次大戦が終わった後の世界中のシステムは男性中心が、これが効率が良くて経済合理性にかなったものだというので、社会システムも経済の仕組みもお金の金融のことも全部それに偏ってしまったので、だからこんな風になっちゃったので、男が悪いとは申しません。
ただ破壊をして、
で俺の方が強いぞ、
犠牲を伴った経済発展、
これのもう未来はないので、ですからそこには今ミュウジさんがおっしゃってくださった女性性として生む性としての
クリエーション、
そこをもっと発信力を高めないとちょっともったいないですもんね。
そうですよね。
想像を生み出す。
そうなんです。
想像を生み出す。
それを具体的にどうやっていくかっていうのをね、これからみんなで手を
発信したいですよね。で、今日のこの大きな素晴らしいイベントのリーダーであるアーヴィン・ラズローさんで、アーヴィン・ラズロー博士とは私もずいぶん昔に出会いをいただいて、ブダペストクラブの名誉会員にもならせていただいてるんですけれども、そのラズローさんがご縁で、
とっても素敵な方ですよね。出版おめでとうございます。
本当におめでとうございます。ワールドシフト2012をお書きになった時にたまたまご縁があって、私も後書きなどを書かせていただいたんですけれども、その中で彼はずーっとおっしゃってきた We are in the midst of the bifurcation、 分かれ道のど真ん中にいてどっちに聞くのかという。で、今日のイベントもね、それをラズロ博士はおっしゃっていただくそのイベントになっていると思うんですが、これもまたどっちに行かなければいかないと思うと、うわー目つぶってもう飛び込まなきゃいけないといやいや、いろんな方法があるだろうと。でも私はこの未来のために何ができるのか。私一人が変えても変わっても何も変わらないと思いがちですよね。でもそんなことはないので、
まず一人一人
が人類がもう本当に思います。今ね、大きな分岐点にあって、どっちへ行くのだ、だから昔ながらの、経済的な価値観の世界に行くのか、そうじゃなくて
命に立脚して、
そうなんですよ。それは
生きてるのじゃなくて生かされている。
私たち人間だけじゃなくて地球には他の生命もたくさんいるし、
大自然の権威ですよね。
そう、共存していかなければ、もう絶対命の循環はありえないんですよね。だからそれを、大事にするような未来を築いていくことができればいいなと思ってます
のが、私たちのこれからやっていきたい、皆さんとシェアしていきたい、皆さんとつながっていきたいという軸になる考え方です。みんな私自身の命は私がもらったものではなくて、私を通してより良い未来に貢献できるミッションを、みゆちさんだから幽体離脱したのよね、私はできないわ、増川さんだからサウンドデザインの先生なんだわではなくて、それぞれみんないただいている。
そうなんです。気づくか気づかないだけなんですよね。
今こそコロナの時代を私たちは生きているので、みんな一人一人が何ができるんだろうということで、これを見ていただきたいと思います。大げさなことは何もない。ただ今までやってきた当たり前で気づかなかったことだけど、これが地球を汚していると分かったらやめる。何をやめるか、それから何か始めた方がいいなと気づいたことは始めてみる。これですよね、みゆちさん。
そうです、そうです。
日々の暮らしの中で、本当に自然のバランスを壊すものをやめていく、
そうですね。
全ての命を尊い、
そうですね、
敬うということがとても重要だと思います。
いや、本当のバランス、地球とのね、うまく命のバランスをあらゆる本当に生命体ときちっと取っていかないと、本当にそれが第一なね時代に来てますね。本当にもう自分だけのことは考えない。
そう、だけどみゆちさんそんなこと言うけれど、私何していいかわからないよねって思ってくださる方、ウェルカムです。この真ん中に、はい、SOW でレインボーカラーを使わせていただきました。生きているのではなくて生かされている自分に気づくこと、そして自分には大事なミッションがある。私が変われば地球を変えていく大きな一つのお力になれる、そんなことに気づいていただく、そんなプラットフォームになっていきたいと思います。 Welcome to the club. Let's join and let's shift together. 私たちは SOW Sisters でした。 ありがとうございます。
ありがとうございました。
I'm Richard Olivier, and I would like to talk to you about activating archetypal wisdom in times of radical transition. I've been working in the field of archetypal psychology and theatre practice and shamanic techniques now for about 25 years, and I have found that these ancient insights that astrology and archetypal cosmology provide have given me immense help, a framework and a blueprint with which to address the deeply complex and often chaotic times in which we live. Rick Tarnas, one of the foremost archetypal philosophers of our time, said on a talk recently that the time we're in now is a time in which there are volcanically intense evolutionary pressures for the radical reconfiguration of all life structures. Volcanically intense evolutionary pressures for the radical reconfiguration of all life structures. That is the best possible potential that we can aspire to and work on and activate in ourselves and in the world around us. That is a synthesis of planetary energies that involve Saturn, the principle of structure, Pluto, the principle of death and rebirth, Jupiter, the principle of global expansion, and Uranus, the principle of radical and occasionally rebellious change. And those four archetypal energies are what the divine spark, the creative nature of the universe is offering our planet at this time. That is the palette of archetypal energies that we're being asked to engage with as deeply as we can, to hold, to work with, and to hopefully find the phoenix that can rise from the ashes of the old story of materialist consumption and using the earth as a resource without any real interaction or interconnection with her. My dad was an actor in the 20th century. My mum was an actress. I grew up around theatre and looking for what are the stories that we're living in and activating, and what part are we playing in that story. And when I found the notion of these 10 planetary archetypes introduced by my good friend, the archetypal astrologer Lawrence Hillman, I found a frame with which to make sense of my life, to make sense of the changing world around us. And it's something that we've been working for 5 years to try and condense into bite-sized chunks of wisdom that we can easily share with others. The archetypes have been with us forever. Archetypes, the way that human beings read the world around them is archetypal in its nature. From the very first expressions of human civilization in cave paintings on walls 30, 40,000 years ago, with their depictions of hunters and priests and mothers and sovereigns. These are archetypal images, and every culture that looks at the world and engages as above, so below, with that kind of philosophical principle, notices that there are forces in our cosmos that correlate to certain energy patterns that we can also see in us as human beings. Anne Baring, who wrote a wonderful book called The Dream of the Cosmos, says, the profoundest experiences of human beings, their deepest feelings and emotions, were understood to be the expression of archetypal patterns present in the cosmos and named as specific gods and goddesses. Hence the warrior principle being related to Mars, the planet, the martial energy. Venus, the lover, being related to the loving energy and intimate energies and relationships with people. And the 10 planets all have these correlations. The anthropologist Levi Strauss said mythological thought is not pre-scientific. It should be seen rather as an anticipation of the future state of science. So the archetypes that we work with are 10, based on the planets in the solar system, and are based on what we think of as 5 realms. The realm of order, how I, you, we organize things. The realm of relationship, how we manage and interact with people. Creativity, how do we initiate the new? Change, how do we manage transitions? And actions, how do we like to try and get things done? And we have figured out a way of ordering the 10 planets in our solar system through archetypal names in each of these 5 realms. In the realm of order, we have the sovereign in charge of vision and purpose. You know, why am I here? Where am I going? What is the purpose? Where's the meaning in this divine universe? And how do I access that? Whereas the strategist, related to the Saturnine principle, whereas the sovereign more to the solar principle. The strategist is in charge of structure and mastery. How am I framing the world? How am I structuring my life? What am I focusing on? In the place of relationship, the nurturer, the lunar principle, around care and empathy. Who do I develop? Who do I grow in my life? Where do I give my heartfelt energies? The lover, the Venusian principle, more about desire and beauty. What social interactions bring me alive? Where do I find beauty in my life? What do I yearn for? In creativity, the dreamer, the Neptunian principle, imagination and inspiration. How can we imagine out of everything that's possible, those little bits of the future that are calling to us? How do we listen to the whispers of the future? The storyteller, the mercurial principle, about communication and synthesis. If I'm beginning to see or feel or intuit the threads of a new future, a new story, how do I synthesize them? How do I create a compelling narrative that others might be able to wake up to as well? In the place of change, the renegade, about invention and disruption, the Uranian principle of radical shock, the lightning bolts that change the course of an industry or a civilization, apparently overnight, as we have all experienced this year with COVID. And the transformer, the Plutonian principle of mystery and regeneration, that endless process of life and death and rebirth that we are also probably going through right now on a collective level. And last but not least, in the realm of action, the warrior, the martial principle, getting things done, challenging old orders that are out of date, defending the practices, perhaps now nature, the ecosystem, against aggressors and those who would not treat her well. And last, the explorer, the Jupiterian principle of adventure and truth, expanding my horizons externally and internally. What is true and what is changing about what is true in our times? And we argue that these 10, and my experience of these 10, is that they offer a profound framework for managing radical transitions. So when you look at your life right now and see its relationship with the world, what archetypal patterns are you focusing on? Coming from the world of theatre, we think of this as leading actors. Most of us out of the 10 have like 3 leading actors, the archetypes that are effectively running our show. Most of us have built competency in another 4 or 5. What we might call supporting actors, who you can call on occasionally, but they're probably not your best day. And almost all of us have a couple of more offstage actors, those who don't really have a part to play at the moment, who often we might ignore or think perhaps don't have much benefit. But in these times of change, when a whole story, a whole worldview seems to be falling apart, disintegrating before our eyes, And in that time in between stories, when we don't yet have a secure new story to jump into from the disintegrating old story, can be a time of great insecurity and great doubt for human beings. We believe that us as human beings, we are storytelling creatures, and we live by and die by our stories. So in this time when we are in between stories, the archetypes and archetypal wisdom can be a really effective way of finding your next step. What are your leading archetypes right now? What is the world demanding of you in terms of archetypal energy? What is coming towards you? And are your current archetypal leading actors, what we think of as your current archetypal pattern, fit for that future purpose? If not, we need to rehearse some new archetypes. We need to perhaps dial up some of our supporting actors to become more leading actors. More radically, we might need to befriend and learn from a less favored archetype who we may have pushed to the edge of our inner stage for a while. I know for myself, as a transformer is my favored archetypal pattern. I embrace change generally, but the lover has been one of my more offstage characters in my working life. You know, I don't get really turned on by beautiful objects around me at work. You know, I want the change. But in this time, what I have learned is that if I don't really pay attention to the intimate relationships in my life, if I don't really learn how to access real relationship online, on Zoom, I'm not really engaging with the future that is calling to me. As a teacher, as someone in personal and leadership development, I love working with people. And for the last 6 months, I've been working with a little screen and finding out how to access my less favored archetypes in order to meet the future that is coming towards me has been immensely valuable for me. So what I have found is that these 10 paths, if you like, you can think of as 10 paths that lead to home. 10 different paths that can reconnect you to source. My personal preferences, dreamer, explorer, transformer, will be ways that will connect me to source through meditation practice in the dreamer, through reading philosophy with the explorer, through some shamanic practice and constellation coaching work that I both engage in and help others engage in for the transformer. Those have been my key ways, but all the archetypes have a way of reconnecting us to source. When we find the archetypal energies that are calling us to inhabit them more, and that can happen in a number of ways. It can literally be a dream. It can be literally an email that comes on, can you do this? It may be a relationship that starts to form or disintegrate in our lives, or a working structure that starts to emerge or disintegrate. All of these we can begin to read by developing what we call an archetypal eye. Which of these 10 complete energies is calling to me right now? How can I find my way to activate that energy? And how can I meet this emerging future in as fulfilled and whole a way as possible? So thank you for your kind attention. I hope this have been useful. My own journey continues. It never ends. I dance with these 10 divine energies, archetypal energies, every day in different ways. Sometimes, of course, I forget them and have to remember what I attempt to teach others. And I'm sure we're all in that kind of learning and teaching process right now as we engage with this brave new world. But for now, it's been a pleasure and an honor to be asked to speak to you. Thank you.
It's a song called Wake Up, and it's a call to action song. It's a call to action against primarily corporate greed, which tends to be eating up this planet and causing climate change and all the rest of it. We know the story now. Ervin Laszlo wrote a book a while back called The Chaos Points, and that book really changed my life. I learned about certain things, especially about eating cows and that sort of stuff, how bad it is for the environment. So I don't want to preach to you about vegetarianism, but the way forward for humanity is consciousness, love, and let's end separation while we're at it. Let's end racism and all the other things that we're burdened with, and move forward into light and life. And that's what the future of this planet is. I believe that. So this is a song called Wake Up, after saying that. And Wake Up is a call to action, and the words are kind of explanatory. You'll hear the message in the song. It's time to wake up, humanity. Here we go. Yeah, let's turn this up a little bit. Hear my little loop station. By the way, the sound you're hearing is a Darabuka from North Africa, which I played into this little Boss RC50 loop station. That's driving the rhythm of this track. It's my drummer for this session today. So this is Wake Up. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So long just to give you this song. Hope it won't take too long before we wake up and know the truth. This world was made for all. From the past we have come to the future to learn from the times we were wrong. We must know now where we belong. This world was made for everyone. Corporations take the soul of our nations. Politicians do just what they're told, and nobody is listening to our frustrations. We have been sold, yeah. Hey! How can we own the land? How can we own the sky and the wind and the rain? There are things that we just can't buy. This world was made for all. All the signs are out there while we still breathe the air. There's a chance if we care. We don't have to go down this road. This world was made for everyone. Now it's only mergers and acquisitions. Consumerism gets out of control, leaving all this debt to future generations. We have been sold. It's time to wake up, wake up. It's time to wake up, wake up. Hey! It's time to wake up, wake up. It's time to wake up, wake up. It's time to wake up, wake up. Sing with me, hey. It's time to wake up, wake up. No more corporate bullying. It's time to wake up, wake up. No more third world labor. It's time to wake up, wake up. Hey, wake up and know the truth. This world was made for all. Wake up and know the truth. This world was made for everyone. Wake up and know the truth. This this world was made for. Woo! Thank you for listening. My name's Chris Birkett. You can check me out on chrisbirkettmusic.ca. And I'm here for Source of Wonder, sparking divine reconnection. So thanks for inviting me, folks. I love you all. Let's make the world a better place.
Powerful words and music from dear Chris Birkett. Thank you so much, Chris, for playing during this event. I think in this deeply weird year, we are all waking up. And now, more words of wisdom from lecturer and writer David Lorimer, author Mark Gober, science director of the Club of Budapest, Maria Sagi, and followed by a beautiful, masterful piece by a genius pianist, Professor Ervin Laszlo.
My name is David Lorimer, and I'm speaking to you on the 19th of August from the southwest of France, the region where the Cathars used to be in the medieval period. These were people who, both men and women, thought that they were carrying the essence, the love message, the masculine-feminine reconciliation of the original Christianity. So I live in that area. This is where I'm sending you greetings from. As I said, it's the 19th of August, and today is the feast day of the movement that I'm associated with Peter Dunoff, Beyensa Duno. Here he is here. And on other years, I might be in the mountains, in the high lakes, the 7 lakes, dancing the Panurhythmy. So I wasn't able to do that this morning, and so I danced the Panurhythmy instead in my garden with my dog next to me, and I also watched the sunrise, which is one of the things that we do in the movement. And to see the first ray of the sun is an incredibly powerful moment of the day, and you see the light spreading and the sun rising. So what I want to do is to give you a few reflections for the source of wonder. And I'm going to begin with a formula from Peter Dunoff, which goes like this. May we have a heart as clear as a crystal, a mind as bright as the sun, a soul as vast as the universe, and a spirit as powerful as God, and one with God. This is the aspiration, the formula of the follower, of the disciple, and it's something I use every day. It's a very powerful formula, the purity of the heart, the clarity of the mind, the vastness of the universe in which we are all a part. I'm going to read you now a poem that I wrote earlier in the year, which is called Easter Orchid, and it's about death and rebirth. Stem shoots straight up, emerging reborn from the dark and fecund womb of moist earth. Enfolded life spirals out from the center, unfolding intricate patterns of purple beauty into time and space. Expanding ecstasy reaches out in fullness of being, only to contract again, to circle round, refolding back into the tomb of earth. We too sleep and wake, forgetting and remembering, dying and rising again. Our souls ascend as crystal radiance, intimately interlaced into celestial light. So we're always living at a time of death and rebirth. The old passes away, the new comes in, the spring arrives after the winter. So we are going through this period of upheaval, of disturbance, but we have the possibility for something new to come out of this. So I see this transformative process that we're going through as full of possibilities, but we have to be vigilant. we have to be courageous. We have to imagine and co-create the new. It's not going to arrive without our participation. And in that respect, part of my work is with young people. And I have a program called Inspiring Purpose, which you can find at inspiringpurpose.org.uk, on sustainable futures. And we've reached hundreds of thousands of young people over the last 15 years. And what they're able to do is tap into their vision, their source, live from the inside out, and define their goals and aspirations for the future and how they're going to contribute to a more sustainable, indeed a regenerated world. So in terms of how to nurture global transformation, education is obviously one of the key ways, but also we need a transformation of our worldview. My friend Mark Gober has recently published a book called An End to Upside Down Living, which follows his book An End to Upside Down Thinking, in which he looks at the science of consciousness and all the findings that are emerging from that. And he sees that we have a picture of reality based on scientific materialism, based on the idea that the mind is a product of the brain, that the brain produces consciousness, and which is also gives primacy to separation. And this is what we need to reverse. We need to give primacy to the whole, to the planet, to the collective, primacy to interdependence, not separation, primacy to what Ervin Laszlo calls the planetary ethic. And I call this an ethic of interconnectedness, because I think that science and psychology and ecology and mystical experience all point to the oneness of life, the oneness of mind, and the fact that we are all intrinsically interconnected. And I think the second thing is that we need to be living from the inside out. Our whole culture is extroverted. We take reality to be what's on the outside, when in fact our sense of reality is our consciousness. It's what's on the inside. And this is what we need to reconnect with in terms of reconnecting to the source, because the source is in us. We are an expression of that one mind, of that one source. And that's the great realization that we need all to come to individually and then act on it. So this represents the primacy of consciousness, the primacy of the inner, rather than the primacy of matter and the primacy of the outer. Our lives are an expression of our intent and our consciousness. So as I say, we emerge from this one mind, and we have a series at the Scientific and Medical Network going at the moment, a series of webinars under the heading One Mind, One Planet, One Health. And what we're doing, this is www.mysticsandscientists.org, is we're putting on a weekly event on a whole variety of topics, in medicine, psychology, the environment, and the sacred feminine, revolutionary love with Michael Lerner. And we're trying to expand horizons so that people can think more broadly and have a real reverence for life. Now, I'd like to come back to Bain-Saduno, Peter Dunoff, because I think he has a very important contribution to make to the renewal of our time. He was the prophet of what he called a culture of love, and I call this a culture of love and wisdom. And these were based on 5 essential principles, not beliefs, but principles. And these principles are love, wisdom, truth, justice, virtue, or goodness. And it's on these principles that the renewal of culture depends. And beliefs divide, principles unite. So we can all believe in these principles and we can all embody these principles. I'd like just to say a little bit more about how he understands the word love, because it's a word that many people feel is overused. But in my view, we don't take it seriously enough. We don't take love and the power of love seriously enough. And he explains that there are 4 levels of love. There's the level which is the personal sentiment. Then there is brotherly and sisterly love. And then love transforms into what he calls a force in the mind. And this is where you have people like Schweitzer and Gandhi and Martin Luther King, who make love the central plank, the central principle of their lives, love and non-violence. And then finally, you have love as a principle in the spirit. And this love is what harmonizes the opposites, what transcends the polarities. And this is really where we're going in terms of the evolution of human consciousness, that we are gradually evolving, very gradually evolving towards cosmic and divine consciousness. But it's a slow process, and one in which we can all take part, and one which we can maybe slightly accelerate by our small individual and group efforts. Now, in closing, I'm going to sing you one of the songs, very powerful song, which I was actually singing this morning on my walk. And this is called The Spirit of God, Duchat Boji. And it's the Spirit of God which fills our hearts with love. Duchat Boji, Duchat Večný, Duchat Svatý, Duchat Blagý, Koi Bodhisattvani Saslubha, Koi Bodhisattvani Saslubha, 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 Koi Bodhisattvani Saslubha, Koi Bodhisattvani Saslubha. This is the Spirit of God that fills our hearts with love. And this is just what we need to do at the moment, to fill our hearts with love and to spread this love. Finally, I'm going to read another poem that I wrote a couple of years ago, and it's called Essence. And you'll see why. To see and to be seen, to hear and to be heard, to open and to be opened, to be touched and to touch, to be loved and to love. This is the fruit of light distilled, the woven texture, the feel, the taste, the priceless currency of life together. So wherever you are watching this, I send you many blessings for your life, for your work, and in whatever you can do and whatever we can do together in this transformative journey that we are all on. Thank you and goodbye.
Hi, my name's Mark Gober. I'm the author of the books An End to Upside Down Thinking and An End to Upside Down Living. I'm also on the board of directors at the Institute of Noetic Sciences. I'll start off by telling a bit about my background and how I became interested in the general topic of consciousness, and then I'll move to why I think these topics are so important, not only for each of us individually, but also for society as a whole. So my books are on the topic of consciousness and the nature of reality, but my background is actually in business. After graduating from Princeton, I went into investment banking in New York during the financial crisis, and then spent 10 years at a Silicon Valley strategy firm where I became a partner advising technology companies on their innovation, business strategy, and very mainstream topics. I wasn't thinking about the nature of reality all that much, but in 2016, I listened to podcasts that exposed me to new ideas and really challenged my worldview. And that led to research, which ultimately led to my writing books. So the main premise of what I write about and speak about is related to consciousness, which is our subjective experience. It's our sense of awareness. So anyone right now listening to this or watching this has a consciousness that's experiencing that. Our consciousness is not something that we can touch, but it is very important because it's the basis of all experience. And what I was shocked to learn in my research is that science does not understand consciousness, that we know consciousness exists, but we don't understand where it comes from. And many people assume that consciousness comes from the brain somehow, even though the brain is a physical structure, whereas our consciousness is not something we can touch, it's not physical. Mainstream science tends to assume that it must be the case that the brain creates consciousness. And what I've done in my research is accumulated lots of scientific evidence done by smart scientists around the world, which suggests that our consciousness actually isn't coming from our brain or from our body, but rather it's the other way around. That consciousness is the fundamental aspect underlying all physical reality, and our body and our brains actually emerge within consciousness. So for me, this was a big worldview shift because I used to think that consciousness comes from the brain. When you die, there's no consciousness anymore, and life is meaningless. We're in a random universe. When you die, it's over, and there's no real meaning to life beyond what you make it out to be. But in the end, there's no intrinsic meaning in life. And here I was confronted with science that challenged that worldview, that maybe our consciousness is infinite and the body is just a temporary stop. So an analogy I like to use comes from Dr. Bernardo Kastrup, a philosopher in this area, who says that all reality could be likened to an infinite stream of water, where water represents consciousness. And each of us is like a whirlpool within that stream, meaning we're a localization of the water. We feel like we're an individual as a whirlpool, but we're fundamentally interconnected to the whole, even though our eyes don't show us that on a day-to-day basis. Now, if that were true, imagine if some of the water from my whirlpool got into your whirlpool. That would be like some of my consciousness entering yours. And that would be like a psychic or a telepathic effect. So this model predicts that psychic phenomena would be real and not paranormal. Another implication of this model is that when a whirlpool stops being a whirlpool, the water simply just flows back into the stream. The whirlpool delocalizes. The water doesn't leave the stream. It simply transitions into a new state. And analogously, this is sort of like when the physical body dies, all that happens to our consciousness is that it transitions into something different. Meaning, this model predicts that when our body dies, our consciousness does not. So much of the science that I aggregate points to the reality of psychic phenomena and the survival of consciousness beyond bodily death. And I reason that if any of these phenomena are real, we can explain it very easily if consciousness is this fundamental aspect of reality. Whereas if we say consciousness comes from the brain, that isn't going to be able to account for these phenomena. So I'll very briefly touch on some of the scientific evidence, even though there's a ton that I've covered elsewhere. On the topic of psychic phenomena, so things like telepathy, which is mind-to-mind communication, precognition, which is knowing or sensing the future before it happens, remote viewing, which is the ability to see something with the mind alone that's far away in space and or time, and psychokinesis, which is the ability for mind to impact matter. These are phenomena that in an everyday science course would be called impossible, according to science. But in fact, there's a lot of statistical evidence that these are real phenomena, which I was shocked to learn about. In 2018, Lund University professor Dr. Etzel Cardenia published a paper in American Psychologist, which is the official peer-reviewed academic journal of the American Psychological Association. And it looked at the accumulated statistics for all these psychic phenomena over decades of research. And what he found is that there is a real statistical effect, and this mainstream journal published the paper, which to me is very powerful because this is a controversial area that many people have disputed over the years. And in spite of all that, the statistics were good enough that the paper was allowed. And I'll give another one of my favorite examples. This comes from Dr. Jessica Utz, who in 2016 was the president of the American Statistical Association. She was giving a presentation to US Congress and the CIA about the US government's psychic spying program, which I was also shocked to hear about, which spanned for roughly 2 decades. $25 million or so were spent on it. So this was a real program for national security. Dr. Utz was asked about the reality of psychic phenomena. And what she said is, using the standards applied to any other area of science, it is concluded that psychic functioning has been well established. A very strong statement from a woman who ran the American Statistical Association. And one final example from Dr. Dean Radin, the chief scientist at the Institute of Noetic Sciences. He has looked at the statistics also for these 4 areas: telepathy, precognition, remote viewing, psychokinesis, and has shown that they are at the level of 6 sigma statistical results, meaning that the odds that these things are occurring just by chance is more than 1 billion to 1 against chance. So in other areas of science, the psychic ability would have been already established and probably welcomed, but because it's so controversial, it hasn't been quite yet. Now, that's just the psychic phenomena category, and already there's a lot of strong evidence. In terms of survival of bodily death, there's also a lot of strong evidence, which I'll very briefly cover. One is the notion of a near-death experience, where a person has some kind of physiological trauma. It might be cardiac arrest, for example, where the heart stops beating, there's no blood flowing to the brain, little, if any, brain functioning at all. And yet some people report hovering over their bodies, seeing things that occurred in the room, sometimes outside the room. And then when they're resuscitated, they report what happened, and sometimes it's accurate. So this is an instance where it's called a veridical out-of-body experience, where what the person sees at a time when the brain shouldn't be capable of producing such a complex cognition, the person reports it accurately. So this is an accurate memory that occurs at a time when the brain isn't functioning properly. And an accurate memory is, by definition, not a hallucination. And so there's a number of pieces of evidence which suggest that these phenomena are examples where the consciousness is functioning even when the body is not. And I'll give one of my favorite quotes from Dr. Bruce Grayson from the University of Virginia. He says about near-death experiences, "We're left with this paradox that at a time when the brain isn't functioning, the mind is functioning better than ever." And this points to a broader phenomenon, which is that consciousness is well beyond the body. There's water outside the whirlpool, but our brain actually limits and restricts what we perceive. So it's a reversal of the conventional thinking that the brain is what's creating consciousness. I and others are arguing actually the brain is a processing mechanism and even a filter, sort of like a filter of consciousness. Another area of research is known as mediumship or after-death communication research. This is the alleged ability to communicate with the deceased. The Windbridge Research Center has run studies on this, particularly with mediums, where they test whether an alleged medium can know information about a deceased person that we can't explain due to chance. And they've run some preliminary studies that have been published in peer-reviewed journals. We obviously need more research, but the preliminary studies suggest that indeed mediums can get information about dead people that we cannot explain through normal means. And these are studies using 5 levels of blinding. So the initial evidence there is, I think, important to look at. And the final example I'll give under this survival of bodily death category is children who remember previous lives. And this is referring to research done at the University of Virginia for over 50 years, where they've examined over 2,500 cases of young children, usually between the ages of 2 and 5 years old, who report memories of a life that is not their own. And in the strongest cases, the researchers are able to find a person that aligns with what the child is describing. So someone actually lived the life that this child is describing, and sometimes the details are so specific that it's difficult to explain other than to say that somehow the consciousness from the deceased person is now into the body of a child. And in some cases, the child even has birthmarks or physical defects that align with the way in which the previous person died in the past life. So there seems to be some kind of transference from one life to the next, which again suggests that consciousness is well beyond the body. So all this is to say that if consciousness is much more than we've been taught in school, if consciousness really is this fundamental aspect of reality, then we as a society need to think about meaning in life and what we're really here to do. And this notion of interconnectedness, if we're really all part of the same stream of consciousness, that's a very significant idea, because that means that all separation that we see with our eyes really doesn't exist at some other level of reality. And one example I'll give to exemplify this idea of an interconnectedness, and Erwin Schrödinger, the Nobel Prize winning physicist, said, "In truth, there is only one mind, this one stream of consciousness." And we see this in the near-death experience, specifically in the life review phenomenon. So in the near-death experience, which, as I explained, is likely not a hallucination caused by a dying brain. If we accept that it's not a hallucination, then it would logically follow that we should examine what people report during the state when their brain's basically off, because it might tell us something about the broader reality. And in fact, what we've seen over the years is that many people come back from the near-death experience talking about a life review, where they relived events in their life. And not only do they relive those events in a short amount of time, they relive them through the eyes of the people that they impacted. One of my favorite examples is that of Dannion Brinkley, who had 4 near-death experiences in his life, and each time he had a life review. What he has said is that he relived his combat days in Vietnam, and he was vicious in combat apparently. So during his life review, he relived the death of the person that he killed through that person's eyes, and then he felt the pain of the child that would no longer have a father because he had killed the father in combat. So when he was resuscitated, his life changed completely. He went from being a very materialistic person to now thinking about how he was treating people, because he saw in the life review what you seem to care about as you're watching your own life is how you treated people. Did you bring joy to people, or did you bring pain to the people? And sometimes it's the little things that matter in life rather than the things that we think matter based on what society might tell us, like how big our house is or what kind of car we drive. Those are not the things that people are talking about in the life review. Instead, they're looking at their behavior and even the small interactions, like how they interacted with the cashier and how that interaction could have impacted every other person in line afterwards. So it shows this life review phenomenon. I think it's an extremely important case because it's like the one mind in action. It's this one consciousness switching lenses in an alternate dimension of reality. Whereas when we're in the body, we're seeing life through the one whirlpool. When consciousness is liberated from the brain, we're able to switch lenses somehow and experience the oneness, experience the one mind. Now just imagine for a second this one concept of a singular interconnected consciousness that we're all a part of. If many people in the world adopted that idea, how would that change our behavior? And I think it goes from all parts of society. If we think about political leaders, business leaders, people in education, if these were the priorities, thinking about how they're treating others, because literally altruism is a form of selfishness at the level of this one mind consciousness, priorities would automatically shift. It would become irrational to do harm to others, and it would become completely irrational to start caring about others much more, in addition to caring about ourselves and making sure that we're taking care of our own bodies and our own lives, because we're part of the one consciousness too. So this idea, which initially started out as a scientific conversation of looking at consciousness and the brain and psychic abilities and survival of bodily death and whether or not there's evidence for it, ultimately the implications here are for all of society, well beyond science. And that's the point I hope to get across here, that if each of us, every day, if we think maybe there's a life review, maybe there's a small % chance that some or all of us will have a life review when we leave the physical body, if that's really part of this interconnected reality, how are we going to treat all of our interactions each day? And that's what I will leave you with, and thanks for listening.
I am Dr. Maria Sagi. Thank you very much for your invitation to the Source of Wonder online event. And special thanks to Masami and Hiroo Saionji of the World Peace Foundation. I am a healer. During my healing work, I have a very, very wonderful spiritual feeling. And this feeling is through to my body if I have the right remedy to the patient. I met Austrian scientist Erich Gober and learned his new homeopathy. I developed my method based on this new homeopathy. This is carried out with a dowsing rod. This is the dowsing rod. Through this dowsing rod, in an altered state of consciousness, I can get the information of the patient's body. This information tells me whether the patient is healthy or not very healthy, or ill or very ill. So how much is deviating from the normal health. According to that diagnosis, I have to give this patient remedy. I give only homeopathic remedy or new homeopathy or my method, but these are all informational methods. And these informational methods are carried out through the Akashic field. I am convinced that this information is only possible that we are all embedded in this informational field, and through this informational field we can connect to each other and we can connect to the source, to the divine spark. I am convinced that every of us, every person has this divine spark and has this connection to the source, but everybody has to find out what is his and her way to the connection, because we are all different. This divine spark is coming differently in every person. In my method, I use the dowsing rod. How this dowsing rod is moving, I can see what are actually the differences in the hands and what would correct this difference. My initial surprise and constant delight, I receive a kind of spiritual guidance in my work as a natural healer. It is coming by way regularly. The harmony, sense of safety and wholeness I experience in music and in art is coming to me to the fore in my healing practice. I do healing through the use of a classical homeopathy to the new homeopathy of Gober, my own elaboration of Gober's new homeopathy, as well as the combined homeopathy developed by Guna laboratories in Italy. When I apply these methods, I have a particular kind of spiritual experience. I feel the dowsing rod pull at my hand. It moves seemingly of its own accord. My hands do not consciously initiate its movement. And when my healing is taking place, there is a feeling of wholeness and harmony spreading throughout my body. Practicing healing is a joy for me. Day after day, year after year, I am amazed at the results and grateful for being able to attain them. To my mind, this is an evidence that there is a subtle but real connection between the source and between us, the same as between all people who share life on our precious planet. I would suggest that everybody just find out what is his and her divine spark, connection to the source, because everybody has it. That is the reason why everybody has the self-healing process. And that is how we can be one, how we can be healthy, how we can be loving, how we can be empathetic and solidary to other people. At the first point of the large intestine, I find a movement which is not very bad, but not absolutely okay. If I take it 2 parallel lines, it is not enough. Then I have to try then 3 parallel lines. That is enough. Now you see, the first point of the large intestine is now absolutely harmonized. And here, it is also in harmony. Although I put the lines only here, it means that also this point is already in harmony. So you see, here is in harmony, and here is now in harmony. And I check this point. Everything is harmony because I corrected this one point. I have a success through the healing, and it made me very, very joyful, and I was very happy. I developed also the remote healing method. It's a special way of healing that helps people remotely who are not in the same room. As I practiced this method, it gave me always more and more joy and more success. People were healed very, very quickly. After practicing this method, I always had more joy and more convincing and more connecting to the source. I just grew in the method and with the method. That I do for about 30 years. And this method is teachable. This method is learnable. I just wish to give it many more people who would have also the same joy and the same practice and the same success as I have. Do the best what you can. and give it to the other person, give it to the children, give it to the community. Be empathetic. If everybody does like that, then we shall have a very nice and sparkling shared future. Thank you for watching this video. I very much hope that you had some new information about a new healing method.
That was Piano Bartok, played in the key of Laszlo. Thank you so much, dear Ervin. Everything is energy, and every being vibrates to its own very particular note. Imagine if we could quiet down the worldwide cacophony and hear our individual and global melody. What a musical harmony that would be. And now, take a moment to hear your note, to feel your note, to be your note. Just hum. Go ahead, just hum. Something like this. Hum. 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 Introduce your note, your loving note, to yourself and repeat it often. And here are some more uniquely loving notes to help us to harmonize to the key of we. Dena Merriam, Howard Martin, and Sara Troy.
Namaskar. I'm happy to be here today to talk a few minutes about the extraordinary opportunity we all have as we are going through this transition as an Earth community into a more awakened and conscious time. And so all of us can help with this transition as we connect more with the divine spark that's within us and that's around us in everything. So how do we connect with that divine spark so that we can help with the awakening of consciousness at this crucial moment on our planet? Well, number one, I think we all have to awaken the heart center and fall in love again with the earth. We have so neglected earth and her many communities of life, and now it's time to reverse that and move from neglect and disregard to deep love and care. And so what does that mean to fall in love again with the earth? It's to take time to look at all the life that is around us and to recognize that that life is the same divine spark that we are, that divine spark is in everything, in the grass, and the plants, and the trees, and the birds, and the animals, and the mountains, in the rivers, in the oceans, into the fish, into the whales and dolphins, and into fellow human beings. And to realize that in connecting with that spark, the divine spark in everything, we are helping to awaken our awareness of the divine spark within ourselves. So this, I think, is the imperative of the moment, to recognize the divine spark within everything and to awaken the heart center so that we can, instead of disregard, not noticing the life around us, fall in love with it again, to be in love again with the life that is our earth and all the communities that live with us on the earth. And of course, how do we awaken this heart energy? Through spiritual practice, whatever your spiritual practice is, meditation, chanting, mantra, it's different for everyone, but whatever that spiritual practice is, which quiets the mind and gets us away from the many thoughts that are occupying us, so that we can enter a place of deep silence and we can enter the deeper self that is our true nature. So finding our true nature within, we can find that nature without and connect the inner and the outer, because there is no distinction between the inner and the outer. We are one. So this, I think, is the work that we all need to do now, and if we can do it collectively, we can transform life on this planet and we can reach a new stage in our evolution.
Greetings, I'm Howard Martin. I'm the Executive Vice President with HeartMath, co-author of the books The HeartMath Solution and Heart Intelligence, and producer of a recently released movie called HeartMath Experience. And today I'm in my office in Northern California, taking the opportunity to support this wonderful event. I'm honored that I was invited to be a speaker. So without a whole lot of preparation or formality, I just thought I'd share some of what I've been feeling about these times that we're all living in. For starters, yes, it's obvious that the world we had, several months ago no longer exists. And we're in new territory now, unlike anything we've ever experienced in global society since the dawn of humanity. So these are, in fact, very challenging times, but also great opportunistic times. And I think most of the people like yourself watching this particular video would have that belief that we recognize that yes, there's lots of suffering, there's lots of change, lots of challenges that are taking place from the pandemic to exacerbated social unrest, economic uncertainty, political polarization, so many different things all happening at the same time. But deep down inside in our hearts, we recognize something bigger is going on. We're in a transformational phase in our world, where a new world is actually birthing itself right now, right in the midst of the old one. And the tension between the old world and the new world is often what we see and what we experience. Now, with that belief, there comes responsibility. For me, I have to be cognizant of what I am doing right now to help usher in this new world, right in the midst of the challenges. What is it that I'm doing that can help to make this easier, a kinder, and a gentler process to bring in this new world that we all sense is happening through these extraordinary times that we're living in right now? And that starts with our moment-to-moment, day-to-day attitudes, perspectives, and actions. What attitudes are we holding when we see the news, when we see how many challenging situations that there are, when we see increases in the coronavirus cases, for example, and we see people that don't necessarily seem to be acting proactively to reduce the effect of the coronavirus? What's our inner attitude in those moments? Do we have compassionate latitude for the entire situation? Or do we get identified and feel a sense of despair, a sense of hopelessness? Do we sometimes get irritated or angry about the way things are being handled? Do we foster judgments about what others are doing or others are not doing? Or do we go back to that place where we hold a higher version of ourselves, our higher dignity and our honor, and we begin to model what we hope these changes will eventually lead us to, which to me is a more heart-connected world, a world that operates more harmoniously based on the principles and values and qualities long associated with what we call heart. My life's work has been an exploration of heart for many, many years now. And the work here at HeartMath is to provide a system, tools, techniques, and methods and technology, all underpinned with scientific research, to reconnect people with something they already have inside, which is this beautiful, magnificent, high-speed, intuitive intelligence that we call heart. And what I've learned about heart all these years is that it's not soft, it's not mushy, it's not sentimental. It's a powerful intelligence, an essential intelligence that we all need to guide our choices through this game of life. And never before has that been as important as it is right now here today. So the connection to our heart's intelligence is part of what I think is happening in this shift that we are experiencing and the new things that we're beginning to discover. The planetary ego has been put on pause for a while. Many people are having to reflect. Many people are going through a lot of things that are pushing them to make different choices, to consider approaching life a lot differently than they were before. And some of the same principles and values that we used to guide our life before all this began don't necessarily work as well anymore. It's an uncomfortable feeling, but it's also a sign of growth, that we are moving, that we are changing, that things are headed in the right direction. So I feel that the most important thing that I can do, and that I suggest to any of you that are watching right now, is that one of the most highly facilitated services that we can participate in is to simply put out more love. Put more love into the energetic field environment of consciousness, to bring in more of our true higher self, our spirit, merge that with our humanness, and gently and casually broadcast a feeling of love. That can sound idealistic, can sound like spiritual fantasy. That's really going to help. But my belief is that it does, and it helps more than we can even realize. So moment to moment, day to day, I'm always asking myself, what am I feeding the energetic field environment of the planet? And am I radiating love consciously into that field? Am I doing it while I'm in activity? Am I doing it preceding activities? Am I doing it in between activities? So I try to stay as conscious as I can, while allowing for the ups and downs of life to be broadcasting or radiating love as much as possible. And to me, that's important. It helps me maintain my balance, my poise, my stability, my connection with my deeper real self. And I do think it's an act of service that's essential right now for all of us to help usher in, as I said earlier, this new and better world that will in fact emerge at some point as we go through these challenging times. Now, each month here at HeartMath, we put out what's called a care focus. And it's, you can find that on the heartmath.org website. We have two sites, heartmath.com and .org. On the .org site, under the Global Coherence Initiative section, you can find this care focus, and it's in audio, and it's also written. A care focus is designed to bring people together, and it does, from all around the world, to use our heart-focused care and our intention to have a positive benefit on whatever situations seem to be confronting global society at any given time. We just came out with one very recently, and what I'm going to do now is something I don't normally do. I'm going to read instead of talk. What I'd like to invite us all to do right now is a little heart meditation. And if you'd like to close your eyes, you can please do that. We'll take about 5 minutes to do this. It can be certainly done longer. It's longer when you go to the Global Coherence Initiative part of the heartmath.org website. You'll see it's lasts about, I think, 12 minutes. We'll take about 5 minutes now, and I invite you to join me in doing this heart-focused meditation together right now. So close your eyes if you'd like, and I will take us through this. You take a minute or two to breathe in the feeling of genuine appreciation for someone or something you care about. This helps to activate heart feelings, which increases the effectiveness of the care focus intention. And just feel your heart connecting with others across the planet who are sending love and care to help reduce the collective stress and raise the heart vibration of humanity. While radiating love and care, see people increasingly treating each other with more compassion, kindness, and cooperation, and taking safety precautions for themselves and others. Now let's send sincere appreciation, love, and compassion to the frontline workers, caregivers, all those helping others through this pandemic. Also, send compassionate care and heart warmth to the thousands of people who have lost loved ones through these times. Let's close by sending our compassionate care to people suffering from the pandemic and many other societal and global challenges. Ask your heart to direct some of the energy from that care to any of the challenges or issues that you care about that are close to your heart. Okay. Thank you very much for your participation in that care focus and for your care. As I said earlier, I think that the way in which we are handling the various situations in our lives today is modeling what we want to see in the future for global humanity. So I take that seriously in a fun, adventurous way to be changing myself, finding new ways to improve, new ways to refine who I am and how I operate in this world, and to model that behavior as best I can through radiations of love, care, kindness, and compassion to people and interactions, any situation that I'm really in. You can go to heartmath.org website and find the care focus there if you'd like to do that again. You can go to the heartmath.com website. Click on the tab for the HeartMath experience. It's a beautiful learning experience. It feels like you're watching a film, but you're learning HeartMath tools and techniques, and learning HeartMath science. You're learning about personal and social and global coherence. And it's divided into chapters. The whole thing's about 90 minutes long. And during these times when we've been experiencing all these changes, we at HeartMath decided to let people have it for free. And there have been hundreds of thousands of people all around the world who have taken advantage of that, who've gotten an access code and who have been watching the HeartMath experience. It's just a gesture on our part to do something that we felt would give people not just more information, but an uplifting spirit, tools and techniques that they can carry forward into their daily lives and interactions, and to apply them to moving through these times with more poise and more grace, and the ability to serve others in new and more effective ways. So I hope you've enjoyed my little impromptu talk today. Thanks again for everyone who invited me to be here for this wonderful organization that's doing all of this. I sincerely wish you all the very, very best in everything that you're doing in your life. Let's stay together. Let's stay connected. We are one. We are connected. Everything is connected. Every living system on this planet. Always recognize that and remember that. And remember that you're never alone. So hopefully we'll meet again in some way, somehow. And until then, I really do wish you all the very, very best, and take care.
Hello, my name is Sara Troy from selfdiscoverymedia.com. The world right now is most certainly in a redirection. It's in a conscious risingness. It's beautiful to see, but this disruption is something that's clearing out the old and inviting the new. But is it so new? The consciousness that we seek, the wisdom that we are open to receive, has been there always, but we lost our way as human beings. We forgot to connect to the universal energy. We forgot to connect to our hearts and our souls. We forgot to listen to our intuitive guts. And instead we became slaves to the expectations of life and what is important and what we should seek and who we should be. instead of honoring the gift of who we really are and what we are here to do. Through the last 8 years, I've had the wonderful opportunity of interviewing people from around the world who are making a difference in the lives of others. Some extraordinary stories have been told, but the thing in common is this: they found their strength, their courage, their abilities, and despite what they had to go through, whether it was just a kiss on the brow or a cosmic 2x4, they redirected by going through the process to become who they are today. And who they are today are givers, sharers, inspirers, igniters, people that are out there illuminating people into being. The universe right now is shaking us up, to wake us up, for us to step up and change it up. That's the invitation right now. You see, you cannot have clarity. You cannot have a new path. You cannot embrace nutrition if there is contamination inside. So that shake up and wake up is waking us up to everything that we've been doing that is wrong. We lost our way. We placed importance on the wrong things. We stopped caring for what humanity is really here to do. We stopped loving. We fed hate, we fed greed, we fed opulence, we fed self-importance, and we forgot the most important thing: our heart, our souls, and our spirits, and the importance of raising that frequency, that vibration, into love. We are the love we seek. We are the peace we seek. We are the answers to the problems. As we point our fingers at everyone else, there's 3 pointing back at us, saying, what are you doing about it? Have you stepped into self-love? Have you stepped into self-worthiness? Are you still chasing the illusion of what others think you should be? Or have you discovered your own beautiful, gifted instrument, learned to play it, and brought it to the orchestra of life? That is what we're invited to do. You see, life is about service, not servitude. And we've become very, very much servants of those expectations of how to live and what is important. But when we step into service, giving service lovingly, kindly, caringly to one another, then we truly actually understand what it's all about, what life is all about, what love is all about, what consciousness is all about, and how raising that consciousness in the world can bring us all together. You see, it's very, very important that we do come together. Coming together is the energy that we need. It's the orchestra that we need. You see, if each one of us bring our instrument to that orchestra, and we have a conductor that knows how to utilize the best out of everybody, from triangle right to the soloist on the violin, and we play that music that resonates out as a ripple effect, an invitation of inspiration and illumination to others, we pick ourselves up and we guide people forward on a frequency where they desire and seek the love that lies within them so they can share it without. But that requires us to participate. It requires us to go in and look at what's not working. It requires us to step up. You see, we've been using our heads for too long, just our heads. You see, part of it is the CPU. It's what governs the whole body, is how it works, right? The other part is programming. It's programming of this lifetime, it's programming of ancestral lifetime and past lifetimes. And that programming is what the problem is at the present moment. We're not listening to our gut instincts, to our source knowledge. We're not resonating it with the heart. We're not listening to the spirit. We've just got this chatter in our heads all the time, and it's misleading us. It's not showing us the way. So when you have that gut feeling, oh, I don't know why I feel this way, but I do, that is source talking to you, to your soul, talking to your instincts, and allow it to resonate with your heart. And when it resonates with your heart in truth, it will then go to your spirit into action and will extract from your mind what your mind needs to know when it needs to know it. This in the head is knowledge. The soul, heart, and spirit is wisdom. We need to tap into the wisdom to understand the knowledge. Knowledge for knowledge's sake is empty. How do we apply it? Where do we apply it? Why do we apply it? But when you tap into that soul intuition, that heart resonance, and that spirit action, and we know what we need to know when we need to know it, then we can truly be productive, creative, solutional, because we are allowing the universe to come through us, to use us as a conduit, to channel through us, to extract all that knowledge that's in the brain, in the memory banks, in the programming, and how to use it in a way that will be beneficial for everyone that we serve. We've got trapped in our heads with this doctrine that more is more. We need the bigger house, the better car, the Armani suit, the self-importance. How many followers do I have? Do I look like the Kardashians? Am I rich? And we think that that is importance. Instead, it leaves us empty. So we understand that simplicity is really where the wealth is. The abundance lies within the enrichment of your soul, your heart, your spirit. The abundance shared is when that spirit and soul and wisdom and knowledge come together. We realize when we're here in that core belief, in that soul and heart and spirit alliance, that what we're here to do, we're here to be that instrument, to join that orchestra, to make that difference. We're here to raise that vibration, raise that frequency. We're here to raise the consciousness. You see, the planet needs that right now. We are not only damaging the planet on it, in it, but vibrationally, we're shattering it. And Mother Nature and this world just cannot take it anymore. It can't take the anger, it can't take the hate, it can't take the discontent. It cannot take it, that those that are switched off to their soul, the heart, and the spirit. When we decide to rise up, to go in our own self-discovery and look what's within us and how to ignite our heart and our spirit and our soul, and to listen to it and let it guide us and show us our path, our meaningful purpose, and then we decide to step into it, then we realize that we are part of the solution. In that love, in that exuberance, in that passion, in that conviction, we bring our creativity, and it becomes part of the puzzle that we need to put together. We are the solution, collectively, individually. See, it's about you individually finding your instrument, your gift, your meaningful purpose, and bringing it to the collective orchestra, because we are meant to be a unit. We are meant to come together. One voice can sound beautiful. A choir of voices in harmony resonates and lifts out and embraces us all. So find your gift. Ignite your spirit. Lift yourself up. As I've said, the universe is here to shake us up, to wake us up, to step us up, and to change it up. We're being shaken, we're being woken, and we know we need to step up. So be willing to go in order to live out. Be willing to ignite that consciousness, that awareness. The planet needs you. Humanity needs you. All life forms on this planet need a higher consciousness from the human race. Be a human being, not just a human doing. We are the solution, and it's actually wondrous. It's exciting these times. We're getting rid of what does not serve. We're changing systems. We're raising that consciousness. We're being less judgmental and unforgiving and letting go of the hate and the discontent. And we're stepping into that kindness and caring and lovingness and realizing it's a place that warms you. It's a place that gives you that deep breath. It's a place that you share out with everyone. And then you understand the enrichment of it, the abundance of it, and how in that exuberant energy shared with others literally lifts us all up. So in this transition, this redirection, this invitation to change, to step up, to make self-discovery, to ignite your own heart, soul, and spirit, please open your heart, your mind, your soul, your spirit, and let the divine guide you. Doesn't matter what faith you are. It's about the universal energy, the energy of us collectively coming together with one agenda, simply love. Love of self, love of what we do, love of our fellow man, love and respect and gratitude of our planet and all beings on it, love of the energy that comes from the universe. It's there waiting for us. So are you going to embrace it? I do hope so. And I do hope you listen to all these wonderful people like Alison Goldwyn, who I started Let's Get Synced series with her and brought some wonderful people who are about the change, you know, the mental climate change, to bring about the change of climate. You see, until we change our minds, we can't change anything else. And we need to change our minds. So many wonderful people here who have put their foot forward. They have become part of the solution. They have stepped up. They've changed it up, and they're helping others change it up. You're not alone. I have 2,500 shows here of people who will help you do that. And realize we need every one of you. We need every one of you to be the love that we all seek. This is Sara Troy, selfdiscoverymedia.com and selfdiscoverycommunity.org. And I really do hope that you're willing to step into exploration, to wondrousness, to self-discovery, and to open up your heart, your spirit, and your soul, and let love in. Thank you.
There are good ideas and great ones, but there is only one OD, James OD. Conscious activist James OD will meditate with us. World-renowned author Lynne McTaggart will empower us. And choral tales composer Ludwig Thumann will entertain us once more as we conclude this inspiring Day 3 on the Source of Wonder event.
Hello, my name is James O.D. I'm the former president of the Institute of Noetic Sciences and an author. And it's a privilege to share with you today what I call the soul awakening practice. It's a prayer that is repeated 4 times and has 6 lines. First time it is for yourself. The second time it is for those you are with. The third time is for all your colleagues, friends, family connections reaching out into the world. And the fourth time is for every being on planet Earth. So the first line is soul awakening, and the soul is the source code of your existence, and every being has it. It is the divine spark within us. It is the indivisible essence of our consciousness. In the Vedanta, we talk about Atma, the soul, and Paramatma, the oversoul, where all souls are in the of one. But each soul is a drop that gets to experience creation and evolution. And the soul identifies initially with its context. So as we go through evolution, the soul says, "Oh, look, I'm a butterfly." The soul says, "Oh, look, I'm a dolphin. Oh, look, I'm a human being. I'm a man. I'm a woman. I'm rich. I'm poor." And it constantly gets impressions, sometimes referred to in Sanskrit as sanskaras, deep impressions on the journey. But there comes a lifetime many of us are having now, and it's the lifetime when the soul begins to wake up and says, "I'm not the little local self. I am the divine spark. I am the consciousness that is infinite and immortal and universal and connected to all." And that waking up process has its sweet and blissful side, and it also experiences suffering. So it has to constantly begin to detach from its impressions in the world. So that's the first line, soul awakening. And then the second line is heart opening. And just as the soul begins to remember that it is connected to the source, that it has all the codes of the source, so the heart begins to open beyond the personal heart, beyond the sentimental heart, and discovers that there is heart in the universe, the universal heart. What an incredible experience that is, to begin to again disengage from all of our petty sentimentalities, frustrations, whatever we call them, of the heart, and experience that you and I have one heart. We share a heart. We share the great heart of the universe. And that opening of the heart capacitates the human. And the third line is light shining. And again, this is the primordial light of the universe in you. It is the light of consciousness. It is the light of understanding, of pure awareness. And with that light, we begin to see our way through the suffering and chaos of the world to the eternal values and to understanding each other. Without that light, we would be locked in the darkness of ego, trapped and imprisoned in selfish things which we see going on around us. But the birth of altruism, living for others, serving others, comes out of that universal heart, awakened soul, and divine understanding flowing. Some say the whole reason for creation is love itself. Again, we're moving from conditional love to unconditional love. I love you, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you have done. My love is so strong that it breaks down barriers of separation and division and hatred and superiority. It is totally without conditions, unconditional love. And then the next line of the prayer is wounds dissolving. All of the wounds that we get from going through the evolutionary process, of all of those impressions about my status, my sexuality, my nature, my destiny, all of the tragedies and opportunities and successes, all of those create impressions. And we can live in trauma and suppressed wounding. And not only do we have to allow those wounds to dissolve, but we have to end the intergenerational transmission of the wound. I carry my wound and I transmit it to you because I can't let it go. I define myself in terms of my wound. And I look at the world through my lens of wound, whether it's individual or collective. All of those forces of soul awakening, heart opening, light shining, love flowing, dissolve the states of wounds, release us from sanskaras, allow us to heal. And the final line is peace radiating. It's really good to connect with the idea that peace is radiant, it is active, it is dynamic. All too often, when we ask about peace, you'll say, well, it's not war, or they say, it's meditation. I go into a meditative state and I feel peace. These are aspects of peace, but peace is dynamic, it is active, it is the growing edge of evolution itself. Our destiny as a species is to experience universal peace radiating in every cell of our bodies, in every family, in every social construction, every definition of health and well-being will be based on peace radiating. So now, soul awakening, heart opening, light shining, love flowing, wounds dissolving, peace radiating. The second time you do the prayer, it's for the ones you're with. So today it is you and I, whoever is gathering for this journey together. Soul awakening, heart opening, light shining, love flowing, wounds dissolving, peace radiating. And now the third time for your family, for your friends, for every connection that they have, all of those connections spreading out into the world. Soul awakening, heart opening, light shining, love flowing, wounds dissolving, peace radiating. And finally, for our world, for all beings in our world, in this time of chaos and confusion and tribulation and difficulty, this birthing process of the new humanity, this birthing of the divine spark in each one of us coming together. Soul awakening across the planet. Soul awakening, heart opening, light shining, love flowing, wounds dissolving, and peace radiating, radiating, radiating. Thank you so much for joining us today. May you experience that soul awakening process with love and great respect. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lynne McTaggart. I'm author of books like The Field, The Intention Experiment, and my latest book, The Power of Eight. I began connecting to Source really by accident. I am by trade an investigative reporter, and I got very interested in the new science a few decades ago when trying to find out why something like spiritual healing works. Why you can have a thought, send it to someone else, and make them better. That led me on an amazing journey, speaking to a number of frontier scientists around the world, physicists, biologists, scientists of all varieties, who were on the verge, each of them, of discovering a new science. Each had a piece of a new puzzle that together compounded into a completely new way of living, a new way of the world. So in putting together that information, which became my book, The Field, I had some unfinished business. And that was the implication that thoughts are an actual something with the capacity to change physical matter. So being a hard-headed investigative reporter, I wanted to test this to see how this would work and how far we can take it. Are we talking about just shifting a quantum particle with our thoughts? Are we talking about curing cancer? So I knew lots of scientists in this field, and I had many, many readers around the world. So I figured if I just put them together, I would have the largest global laboratory in the world, which is what I did. I started a thing called the Intention Experiment in 2007. And every so often I would have a scientist put together some sort of controlled experiment while I would invite my readers from around the world to take part by sending the same thought to the same target. I wasn't sure it was going to work, but it really worked. We've run 34 experiments to date, everything from trying to make seeds grow faster, to purifying water, to lowering violence in war-torn areas, to healing someone of post-traumatic stress disorder. And of those 34 experiments, 30 have shown measurable, positive, mostly significant results. Just to compare that with something else, there's no drug out there, no pharmaceutical drug out there with that kind of consistent track record. So when I was doing this, what I noticed though, was that the outcome wasn't the real part of the story. What was going on was major transformations among my participants. They, if they sent out intention for peace, their lives were becoming more peaceful. They were becoming more in love with everyone they came in contact with. And I know this because I used to survey them after each experiment, and I still do. They made up with estranged partners and relations. They were getting along better with their not so nice bosses. They were hugging strangers, essentially. So I was fascinated by this. And early on in this whole process, I started putting people together in small groups in my workshop, just to see what would happen if a group of about 8 sent intention to a member of the group with a health challenge. So I tried to scale the whole thing down. I was just kicking around the idea with my husband one night, and I said, well, I don't know what to do in these workshops. Maybe I'll just put them in these small groups, have them send intention to someone with a health challenge. You know, small groups of 8 or something. And he said, I love it, the power of 8. And that's how it started. When we first did it in Chicago in 2008, we expected it to have a very mild effect, like having your shoulders massaged. That's not what happened. After we put these people in groups, we had them choose a member of the group as the target. They did their intention, and then they all went away and came back the next day. The following day, each person who had received intention had a major story to tell. People who were suffering from depression found that depression lifted. Somebody who had terrible knee arthritis and was not walking normally, was limping with a lot of pain, was suddenly pain-free and walking normally. A woman with cataracts said she was 80% better. And so it went on and on and on. I was witness to an extraordinary divine spark right then and there, shocked that we had this power within us. Now, being a journalist, I didn't really believe this. I thought it might be a placebo effect until I started doing it in over and over and over again in workshops and in the big experiments. And I found not only were people having extraordinary healings, but the people sending the intention were also being healed. That there was something in collecting as a group, a small group, and sending out a collective prayer, if you would, that ignites an amazing, amazing power within us. Last summer, for instance, there was a woman who came to a talk of mine who was in a motorized wheelchair. She was paralyzed from the neck down. Her name is Maya. Maya became the subject of one of these Power of 8 groups. I put everybody in groups at the end of my talk, all 600 of the people in the audience. Maya received the intention. And afterward, I asked people to stand up if they had any kind of, and raise their hand if they had any kind of story to tell. Well, the group nominated Maya. And when I asked her to speak, she got out of her wheelchair and stood. And she didn't need any help from anybody else. Now, there wasn't a dry eye in the audience, but it's not the only miracle I see. I see thousands of them every single time. And not only, as I say, the receivers, but also the senders. People who are stuck in their lives, when they begin to be part of a group and do an altruistic act, like sending loving intention to someone else, find in so many instances that their life heals too. So that to me is the divine spark. It's also the way through all of the crises we see today. We see so much misinformation. And one of the biggest areas of misinformation is who we really are. We are told that we are separate, we're all separate, and that we are a lonely person on a lonely planet in a lonely universe. That is the bleak story given to us by a science that is more than 300 years old, that there isn't enough out there to go around, that life proceeds through struggle and domination, that we are all separate little well-behaved elements in a static universe. I've seen something very different. Not only a new science that shows we're all part of a greater whole, but as well a demonstration of that. When people in my Power of Eight groups and our intention experiments come together and connect with a sense of oneness, they have a major transformation in their lives. They find a power to heal and a power to love they didn't think was there before. One of my most extraordinary intention experiments was several years ago. I had the opportunity to work in a studio that could beam out to 10 different locations. So we had cameras in conference rooms in 8 different Arab cities. And the 9th camera was in an auditorium filled with Israeli Jews. Now, these people are hated enemies. They came together to do an intention for Jerusalem, which was suffering a lot of violence at the time. And I also beamed out this intention experiment to all of my followers and community around the world on YouTube. So we did this intention for Jerusalem, and afterward, thanks to this technology, I could call on the different groups in the different cities that were in these conference rooms, and they could speak back. And so I called on people in the different Arab cities, and to my astonishment, they started sending love to the Israelis, and the Israelis started saying things like, "Your God is my God." It was totally transformational. These two hated, separate enemies were coming together as one. They had experienced a feeling of oneness. The journalist in me was so fascinated by all of this. I wanted to know why this works so well. So I was fortunate enough to have Life University, one of the largest chiropractic universities in the world, offer to put their neuroscience department at my disposal to look into why the Power of Eight groups work so well. We had volunteered groups among the student body. We put an EEG cap on one member of each group and studied their brainwaves, what was going on during a Power of Eight session. And what we discovered was something remarkable. The parts of the brain involved in separation, the parts of the brain involved with worry, doubt, negativity, were all dialed way down. We thought we were going to see brainwave signatures very similar to meditation, but that's not what we observed. We saw brainwave signatures almost identical to ones recorded at the University of Pennsylvania when studying Buddhist monks during ecstatic prayer or Sufi masters during chanting. Our people, these Power of Eight students, were experiencing a state of oneness, a mystical state, very much like what the late Abraham Maslow called peak experiences. These people were in a state of oneness, and that is the place where miracles take place. What I feel in the midst of all of this global crisis and upheaval, misinformation, and despair is that the way forward is through small groups. I find small groups essentially praying together, doing intention together, which is a secular form of prayer, are finding a route to healing for themselves, for their loved ones, essentially for the world. So please, if you are interested in true transformation, find this out for yourself. This is your birthright, a Power of Eight group. Set one up yourself and discover the power that you really hold in numbers. Thank you so much.
The third and last short film is called The Happy Man's Shirt. This delightful tale shows how lasting happiness is not found in wealth, material consumption, power, or status, but comes from within. The story is found in various countries of Europe, and also in Africa and India. The version selected for our production is found in Scotland. In this tale, there's a king who has every comfort and luxury, but he's still dissatisfied. Though he's surrounded by a wonderful queen and daughters and has immense wealth and power, nothing brings him satisfaction. The wise men advise him that to regain his happiness, he has to find a truly happy man and wear his shirt for a day. So the king sets out, dressed as a common man, and wanders the kingdom looking for such a person. But he finds all the dwellers of his kingdom to be unhappy in one way or another. Finally, one day, he meets a man fishing by a brook. The man is full of joy and gratitude for the beauty in his simple life, and invites the king to eat with him. The king realizes he has found a happy man, and reveals to him his true identity. The happy man looks over the king's rags, and looks at his own rags, and they burst into laughter. The king asks for the man's shirt, but finds he doesn't even have a shirt under his coat, and they laugh even harder. His happiness restored, the king invites the man to return with him and stay in his castle.
share. Was happy to share, to share. But under his coat, but under his coat, but under his coat, but under his coat, his coat, but under his coat, his chest, 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 his chest was bare. His chest was bare. He had no shirt. He had no shirt. Now what to do? Now what to do? The king, the king. The king, the king, he laughed aloud, his heart serene, his heart serene. The king, he laughed aloud, his heart serene, his heart serene. And he laughed aloud, and he laughed aloud, he laughed aloud, he laughed aloud. His heart serene, his heart serene, his heart serene, his heart serene. He laughed aloud, he laughed aloud, he laughed aloud, his heart serene. With light steps he set off. With light steps he set off. With light steps he set off. To his queen he set off home, home to his queen, his queen, home to his queen, his queen.
Love is surrounding you, imbued in you. It may look anything on the outside, but when we cultivate inner vision, we discover quiet, unimaginable worlds within. This is a ride like no other. We are all learning to steer that rudder. And I invite you to turn the compass inward with me and return for tomorrow's Day 4 finale. Please like, share, comment, and care. Check out the website sourceofwonder.com and stay attuned. May the source be with you.